All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the August 8th, 2018 edition of Contributor Experience. George is going to kick off the recording agenda items for us this morning. So, George, do you want to take it away?
Yep, thanks. Okay, so Arun is the last guest of this week, host that we have for the community meeting. So we have slots. If you click through the planning sheet there, and you go to the tab that says 1.11 schedule. Actually, that should be renamed to 1.12. I've done two things here. First of all, we ran out of SIGs, so I went ahead and repopulated what the schedule should look like through the end of October as far as SIGs going. And then over here on column G, we have blank slots for people to be hosts. So if you want to host, please fill in your name. We at least need a host for next week. And then Paris goes, and then we have blank hosts. So if you can host, if you don't know how to host, you can shadow being a host, or I can show you how to do it. It's pretty simple. And as far as the number of SIGs that are going, because we keep moving around, sometimes some SIGs can't go in a certain week. I move around. We've been moving around SIGs on when they actually give their updates and stuff like that. I am pretty sure I got every single SIG in the next cycle. And then I left two slots that say empty just in case a SIG needs to postpone or something like that, we can move them to a slot. I would really appreciate if column D, E, and F for the next few meetings, if someone could just spot check that, make sure I didn't miss a SIG. I'm like pretty sure I didn't miss a SIG. And
I'm going to move AWS up because they missed their last slot, and so we actually haven't heard from them in 2 months.
AWS is actually going today. Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. We had a demo drop, so we decided to slot in AWS right there. So that kind of worked out perfectly. Sorry, that's not reflected here. And that's pretty much for the recurring things. So please sign up for hosts. If you have interesting people that will be great to invite as hosts, please let me know. We can always do that. I like to get cool people in and out who can host. So please fill that out. That's all I have.
Wonderful. Just to double check, is there anybody who's new on the call this morning? I don't think there is. But if you are, go ahead and shout. No. Okay, great. It looks like, I think, George, you might have the next one, right? Yes. Contributor board bike shed extravaganza?
Yes. So this is I sent this out to the Contribex mailing list about having like a contributor job board, and then everyone's like, we can't call it a job board, and now we got a bunch of names. And really the name is the only thing I have blocking me. I've made a prototype of a Discuss forum, subforum with like templates for SIGs looking for volunteers, volunteers looking for SIGs. And I got a cool picture and all that stuff. So really all I need is a name, and then we can do it.
Take it to a vote.
Quick question on the community meeting tomorrow. I see open caps isn't taken, and the steering committee would like to talk about a bunch of stuff. Do you mind if we steal that slot, or should I go talk to Arun about that?
That sounds good to me. I would just sync with Arun on that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Paris, did you say something? Are we voting? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, no, my idea for the name is just to put it out on the mailing list and put it up to a vote. Like, see what everybody thinks. Naming is hard.
Yeah, I'm just calling it. I've called it roll board for now because I figure we can change it to whatever. But we didn't really come to a consensus on the list.
The thing about the name is I'd want to kind of have at least a 80-85% settled name before we start advertising it wide, so people know what to call it before we talk about it in the community meeting,
Sure.
or things like that. So I think a poll would probably be a good thing. Like if we can just toss out a quick poll with a bunch of suggestions, and whichever one reaches the top, then that's the name we go with. I think we're all very supportive of this idea and getting it rolled out.
Okay. Poll for name, another 72 hours then, obviously, for the name. And then we're good to go. Does that sound like consensus? Okay.
I think so.
Yes.
All right, sweet. I'll follow up on the list then. Thanks.
Ihor, it looks like you have the next one. Sunsetting SIG service accounts.
Yep. So as we've discussed a few weeks ago at one of the previous meetings, we'd like to completely sunset the existing GitHub bots, mailing lists, and so on. So we have removed that part from the SIG creation procedure, but we still have some tails on GitHub and in the mailing lists. So I've drafted a brief announcement to the community, so I'd like you to take a look at it, and if it looks good, I'd like to push it to Kubernetes dev tomorrow and announce it repeated at a Kubernetes community meeting tomorrow. Just in brief, we're asking people to delete their mailing lists if they're not using them, and delete their GitHub bot accounts if they are not using them. And they're definitely not using their GitHub bot accounts.
Do we add a time box for them?
So you've got a time box of a week, but I feel like that's kind of aggressive. My concern with deleting the Google groups is that if people were following the Google group, if they were following the account creation process, like that Google group email address is the only recovery email address available for those GitHub accounts. So if we end up deleting the Google groups without the GitHub accounts being deleted, like they're gone, they're zombies. And maybe we don't care, that's fine. That could be detritus that we don't care about. But like I tried reaching out to SIG Scalability, for example, because I have the credentials to their GitHub accounts, and it's been 3 weeks, and I still actually haven't gotten a response back. So I'm assuming they don't care that much, and I could just get rid of it. But I see Matt has his hand up.
Well, yeah, in addition to that, is there any history in any of these Google groups as far as documentation and things that have been recorded that should be preserved in the Google groups by keeping them around? Like as far as discussion, were they ever used for that?
Well, like, I mean, yeah, I went back as a human and looked at all the Google groups for SIG testing are gone, right? I got rid of them. I got rid of the mirror accounts because I went back and looked, and they're just like, they hold all the GitHub notifications that were sent to those teams that nobody's bothered looking at. So, like, unless the SIG knows of a Google group that's being used for discussion, they're probably.
I heard only 1 or 2 cases that some SIGs tried to use them, but it was like a long time ago. I haven't heard any successful cases from any SIGs during the last time. But I haven't asked explicitly, so that's a different question. So we are like the general purpose of these groups is only to serve as a fake email account to create the GitHub bot account, while the general discussions had to happen in the single mailing list that was created for.
Oh, sorry, dogs are here. Since we have the SIG apps lead on, for example, do you guys use the Google groups at all? Matt?
The Leads Google group is used for credentials with things like
Sorry. When we're talking about Google groups, let's be clear. We're talking about the Google groups that are suffixed with the word like feature requests, proposal, bugs, test failures.
Yeah, I was just going to list off the only Google groups we have, which are the Leads one and then the regular one. And I'm not actually even aware that we have any other Google groups for anything else.
You were one of the many SIGs who just didn't bother complying with the request to create the Google groups in the first place.
I think we were around before some of those even existed, and then we just never used them, so we didn't create them because we didn't see a need, is likely what happened.
Pardon?
a conservation of effort. He didn't create them, and now he doesn't need to delete them.
Hooray. Okay. So, like, I just feel like deleting the Google groups after a week might be aggressive and turned back from a human, but to help incentivize people and remind people that those things are probably useless and will go away, I'm going to open up a PR to remove all reference to those Google groups from every SIG's README. So I'm not deleting the Google groups. I'm just making sure there aren't dead links that go to nowhere. So for example, SIG apps page does actually list that you have all these Google groups, but when I click through, I get a not found. And it's kind of a pain to script this because I'd need an API to ask whether or not the Google group exists. And since this isn't the paid version of G Suite, I don't have an API. So I'm just going to blanket remove all links to the Google groups from all SIG's READMEs. Okay, I'll have a PR out later today.
Any proposal on the deadline except 1 week? So if 1 week is too aggressive.
I would keep reminding people on a daily basis, not daily, but like every week, show people
On
like
a weekly basis, okay.
Here are the GitHub accounts that are still not yet gone. I'm going to come after you.
Okay, thank you.
Makes sense.
Vlad, I'm really sorry. I saw your agenda thing and I forgot to bump it to the top. So do you wanna take it away?
Sure. I like listening in every once in a while. No worries. Let me share screen. Okay, so I added I guess the big update is that I added all the I went and scraped all the Kubernetes docs from website, and then I added them in. The one thing is, instead of adding them all as one giant block, I added them in sections, so that instead of just saying, hey, there's if this is a question that looks similar to something in your text, it's not going to tell you to go to this giant long doc and go read it. It'll try to take you to a smaller part. So as an example, I just searched for writing a replication controller spec, just because I found that random one. These are the results that it came back, and so what I did was it reformatted the text to look kind of similar to what it looked like on the page. So all the little code blocks are code blocks, all the links are links and stuff, and you can expand it out. And when somebody actually goes to click on it, then I'll open up on a different screen. So for some reason, Zoom makes my whole laptop slow. So when you actually click on it, instead of going just to the doc, it kind of goes to that section within the doc to make sure that people are kind of going to the right place. So that's the big one. This was only deployed yesterday, so we'll see how it goes. I actually ended up lowering deploying it initially with a very low kind of relevant score, so it actually kind of showed up a lot probably in the last day or whatever, in the last less than 24 hours, in the last 10 hours, probably showed up a whole bunch of times. Otherwise, I always go into my analytics page or my metrics page. This is very inaccurate, apparently. I just figured this out while I was debugging and seeing what happened, and apparently something is getting double or triple counted somewhere. So the only way to actually that I'm looking at right now is how successful this was is through here, or through directly on Amazon. And so far, it's most people are not really giving too much feedback. There's not a lot of positive feedback, but there's not a lot of negative feedback either. So that's kind of bad. So I'm figuring out the graphs and stuff today. And then the other thing that I spent a lot of time in the last week was, again, relevance, making sure that the answers are as relevant as possible, working on a completely new model with a lot more crazier machine learning style stuff that it'll come out some point soon. So within the next week to maybe 3, it should it should get better in terms of detecting questions and being able to give the most appropriate answer. So I also realized I usually give a 2-minute update, a 2-minute thing of what Focal is, but this time I kind of forgot. So anybody have any questions?
So I don't think I've synced with you in a while, Vlad, but have you noticed, I know the graphs are wrong as you said, but have you noticed any uptick, anything since you've been indexing the Stack Overflow questions for a while now? Is that
yes.
proving to be useful?
Yeah, so I mean, we're definitely providing more answers. I think we're able to provide more answers of Stack Overflow questions. They're definitely like, we're definitely showing stuff more often, and we're able to display more stuff. Again, it's hard to tell because I have to figure out how far back the metrics go that are wrong. And also I recently, only within the last like maybe 2 weeks that I start actually collecting like the actual proposed answers that we give. And like, so these like the, what somebody asked, what was the thing we actually gave them, and like, was it helpful or not? So like that we only started collecting within the last 2 weeks or something. So I don't know if I have too much data to answer that. But
so we need more time is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, that is helpful in figuring out what's wrong with the graphs and stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely seeing more like answers. I'm seeing that like a lot of the proposed answers we give are Stack Overflow answers, and a lot of the ones that that people say is helpful or answers their question does come from Stack Overflow.
Where is this bot actually answering questions?
It's on Kubernetes users on Slack.
It's on users and on we added it on Novice too, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's probably not very, very active on Novice. It's probably more on users.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we planning to eventually have it available on Discuss as well?
You mean on the website Discuss, not the Slack channel, not like a Slack channel Discuss? So yes, I was looking at that, like once Discuss has a lot more kind of questions and answers. Like right now it's there's like some categories of like general discussion, which I kind of don't, doesn't make sense to pull in. But yes, I want to pull the those questions out of to like index to show Slack users. And then I actually haven't ever looked at like the Discuss APIs, if there's even a way to like do something similar here to like post, proposed solutions back to Discuss. I have no idea.
Yeah, there's an API we could use, but we should invest. Currently, we don't disallow people posting support questions there, but we kind of strongly encourage them to go to Stack Overflow. But we could probably tie something in.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Vlad?
Does Paris on the line wanted to discuss kind of long-term viability and stuff?
I'm here. I am still like not seeing what an end goal is here. Like I still feel like I don't know what success looks like. I still don't know how this is fruitful for us. That's just my opinion. I don't know. I mean, I think it's cool. I think it could add value. I just don't see it right now, I guess.
Yeah, I think we need the metrics for that, right? Like I think, like you mentioned earlier, with the amount of people that are growing in users so far, there's 43,000 in there somewhere. Like I think we should perhaps either pick, I don't know, like however many people chose this answer help me or something. Maybe there's like a goal metric that we can pick there without making the metric the goal.
Sorry, I don't follow that. Like, so I mean, like one of the, like, to me, my core metric is how often, like how helpful the things are. Like, so how often am I showing something that's very actually useful, that's considered useful to somebody?
Right. But then the users click, this was useful to me, right?
Yeah. So so like when somebody actually clicks, this is useful to me, that's my metric.
Right.
Not like when we just, where we show not when we just show something, but when we actually get.
Yeah. Because I feel like that could be like a good place to start, I think.
Yeah. I mean, so that was the kind of my thing that I've been trying to follow, and the thing that I've been displaying. And now I'm figuring out, I don't know how accurate that number is, but I would think that that's still the kind of best approach.
Because I got one earlier, I was like, I don't care right now, you're just a bot. Like I didn't feel like I'm wondering for the people that it does, I guess we'd need to see accurate stats to see how many people are clicking through, knowing right off the bat that we know that lots of people are just going to ignore it.
Like I'm looking at the Slack data right now for Kubernetes users.
Yeah.
There's 43,000 people in there. In the last 30 days, they've seen 12,000 messages and 13,000 unique users posting messages. So I feel like these are little numbers compared to the activity that channel sees.
Yep. Yeah, and that is by design. That because the relevance of this is a little low right now, I'm figuring out how to ramp up relevance before.
Yeah, it's kind of chicken and the egg, right? Because we don't want to spam them too much if the information's wrong.
Right. So I mean, and most of the, like, if you break down those conversations as well, a lot of it isn't like a question. A lot of it is either responses or potential responses to things. So like one of the thing that this thing first does is it takes a big block of conversation or like a big block of text and converts it into like conversations where it's like back and forths. So most of those messages are not necessarily like, hey, this is my question. A lot of those messages that you're seeing are probably back and forths. But with that said, there's definitely some questions in there. There's definitely stuff that we're kind of not detecting, and that's kind of by design, that we don't want to spam people. We don't want to show this thing too much.
Would it make sense to maybe, as you get more relevant information, to maybe up the aggressive? I don't know if aggressiveness is the right term, but maybe, and then maybe see how that affects the success rate, I guess.
So as in like once it starts being more relevant, up it up, like and that's the goal, right? Is that like once it's a lot more like better at like giving you more successful answers, like once we actually assure that like at least 50% of the time, which is like a very low number, but at least like a large number of times, that when we offer a solution or we offer an answer, it's actually the right answer, or it's most likely going to be considered a good answer, a helpful answer. At that point, we ramp it up so that it shows up a lot more often, and it lowers the bar of like what is a question that we can answer, and that kind of
yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the update, Vlad. Ihor, could you take away our next agenda topic? New Kubernetes slide template.
Yeah. So we had enough requests from the Kubernetes community and some concerns that we don't have an official community-provided slide deck for the Kubernetes-related presentations, like the general updates in the community or your presentations that you're making at the different events. So Alex from CNCF, I'm really grateful for her. She created a draft of how can the slide deck template may look like, and the link is in the meeting notes. So please review it, please take a look, and let us know if you have anything to add here. And if nobody will have any updates and so on, so my plan is to announce it publicly next week. So like I'd like to have your feedback around 7 days from now.
How would you like people to give you feedback, Ihor? Like on the mailing list? Directly?
Anyway, so feel free to comment the slide deck itself. It should be open for comments. If not, just let me know. Feel free to ping me directly on Slack or on a mail.
Okay, thank you. Bob and Jeff.
Sorry, just one question here. Might be just my internet connection, but I only see one slide here.
There is one slide, but if you will click on a button with plus, actually on a new slide with layout, you will see around 9 different slides there.
Yeah, I see them now. This looks really cool. Great job.
That's Alex, not me. Any other questions before we move to the next item? Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Bob and Jeff, you're up. Automation accounts?
It's more so.
All right. Yeah. However, you're going to have to take it away if all of a sudden there's loud noise because our kitchen's being worked on. So after talking with George and Bob, we were looking at trying to automate a bunch of the social media accounts and populate more information into Discuss. So we have all these different sources of truth, aggregating them into Discuss, and then being able to say certain things get posted to say Slack or say Twitter. We kind of demoed it, well, didn't demo, but showed last week. We were using If This Then That as a proof of concept. Paris and I believe Chris Short and someone else were like, that's bad. And it was a pilot, so whatever. Then we started playing with Zapier and rebuilt everything from If This Then That into Zapier, and that was very, very easy. And also, instead of having to create multiple rules to branch out, you could have one rule to do, forking, essentially. So we set that up almost right after that meeting, and it's been running for the last week. Unfortunately, it's been posting under me. So my face got slapped all over Discuss, and George was very, very happy about it. But it looks like it's a success. So I would like feedback on that. If there are other sources of truth to auto-post things, please let us know. We're actually setting it up so if there is a new release cut from GitHub, it will automatically post to announcements on Discuss. And then tentatively, right now it's posting under me, it would actually Slack and tweet it.
That's super cool. How would you like people to give you feedback?
Slack me.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Christoph, you're up.
If I can find my mute button. Just wanted to give a quick update on the stuff that we're doing over at the new GitHub administration team. So we've now formed all the people that are members of the team are now owners on all the orgs, and as of about 10 minutes ago or so, we've now completed our audit and have removed everyone else that may have those kind of root level privileges in a legacy kind of scenario. So now we have like an actual team that is handling all the GitHub stuff. So that is very good, considering there's been a couple different news stories and that recently that have gone over the internet around compromises in GitHub and with GitHub tokens and all that kind of stuff. So we're now in a bit of a better place as we can now audit and maintain all of our GitHub orgs in the same way. So lots of progress, still some work to do. In particular, I'm looking to, the next step will be getting issue templates. I've got actually a PR out right now. We're going to get some issue templates and some processes in place so that if people need changes, like, hey, I need a new repo. There's the Kubernetes org repo, which is kind of going to be our meta repo for the new tooling. And the process at this point that we're looking at doing is people opening issues against that repo and then being able to, so that we can kind of track who's handling what, executing on requests, and getting the information that we need to be able to do those things. So it'll be like policies and procedures stuff. That's kind of the next thing that we're working on. I'll drop a link out to the PR that I have open into the meeting notes. That's it for me.
I might suggest that there be some official way to contact the administration team other than filing an issue for people who have some kind of an issue with doing anything on the org at all. I'm not sure what that would be, but it would be nice if there was some official way to contact the team on, say, Slack.
Why not the contributor experience mailing list?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the official way, I just think we should publish an official way somewhere.
So issues are the official way. Like, it's really not that hard to file an issue. It can be assigned to people, so we know who's got it. It's got an audit trail, so we know what's happening with it. My concern with, like, this is the sort of thing where I want there to be one true way, right?
To give you an example, imagine that we mess up some sort of bot thing so that it becomes impossible for people to file issues.
Sorry, I didn't. Can you say that again? I missed that.
I said, imagine if we actually mess up some kind of prow thing so it becomes impossible for people to file issues.
Right. So if this is an automation problem, the escalation policy is you go file an issue, and then you reach out to folks in test infra, and if they're not responding there, you reach out to the testing ops channel. There's a PR, maybe this hasn't merged yet, but I know I've reviewed a PR that Christoph put together that actually documented these policies for how do you contact us, and if you need to escalate, how and where do you do that?
Yeah, that one hasn't merged yet either. I will put that in the meeting notes as well. But it does specifically split out automation and calls that out, Josh, because there is a different path for that. The GitHub administration team is going to be more kind of like the day-to-day GitHub tasks, whereas automation actually has its own thing. There's testing ops in Slack, and there is the test infra on-call. So there is an on-call person for the automation because it is such a critical thing, and we don't want to get into a situation where bots are doing bad things.
Yep. This could dovetail into a broader discussion about like an on-call policy and SLOs and stuff for the test infra folks, which I don't want to get into other than it's kind of hand-wavy. So like just come escalate on Slack. But for GitHub administration related duties, like please just use the one place, the org. If you have to escalate to somebody, if you need to get in touch with a human being, our names are listed in the GitHub administration team docs, and you can come reach us on Slack. I also think for what it's worth, this might be worth talking about the community meeting tomorrow during an update, especially since like I know we just kind of had a grand purge of people with owner powers on all the GitHub orgs. It might be good to remind people now that that happened, here's who you come contact and here's how you contact us.
I think that's a good idea if there's time and room for it in the agenda.
Would you mind doing that, Aaron? I have a consistent conflict Thursdays at 10 a.m., so I'm never on the community meeting.
I will happily do that, yes. I'm actually trying to, the steering committee is going to give a shout out, so I'll include that.
Sounds great, thank you.
All right, Bob and George, do you want to talk about the contributor site?
Sure.
All you, Bob.
Okay. The repo's there. Things have been migrated over to it. Merged a couple things in over the weekend, so like discourse posts and all that can go there too. We're pretty much just waiting for the DNS name to be then pointed at the Netlify. It's a CNAME entry for that points towards the Netlify address. Also, there was a little bit of confusion. I think it was like last Friday. I know, Christoph, you had talked about it, and me mentioning like setting stuff up with the K community repo so people get PR previews. Sorry about it. That was like a complete, out of band conversation that didn't get bubbled back. It's not going to happen at this point. No big deal. Right now, we're thinking for as far as like frequency of updating the site is in Netlify. You can actually tell it to like when you want to update, so I can have it essentially do a build, nightly or something like that. So the site will just be generated then. And I think that's it really. There isn't too much to say about it. Do you remember anything, George?
Yeah, so what was the reason for the automation? Like we don't want automation, this kind of automation on Kubernetes community, or is that only for the website? It's just not clear. And you also
it was for integrating Netlify into the K community repo.
Right. And we don't want to do that, right?
It'd be enabling a like OAuth 2 app or something like that. That I'd have to go back into Slack conversation.
And then if the site is actually up at kubernetes-contributor.netlify.com, and I added the link in the notes if you just want to click through. Obviously, you can check it out, but we don't want to socialize that URL. But it's there if you want to check out the previews. And please file issues on, I know people had opinions on the left column there, how we should best organize that, if the sidebar even is a good idea, so please file issues.
The biggest thing will just be the content organization itself. And then Alex is working on like, how it visually looks is going to completely change as soon as we get the theme from Alex. But at least with the way the content is laid out will probably remain consistent between both what is currently there and what we're getting. I think that's it.
Great. Thank you, Bob and George. Paris, it looks like you have the next couple.
Yes, now that I'm stationary, thank you for the patience. So first things first, we're going to send out a global meetings poll. What this means is that we've heard from several contributors that are outside of the continental United States, and they would like a more suitable time. The docs team is doing it. Other SIGs do it. Node does it. So what we're going to do is throw out a poll to see what times would kind of work best for who and when. We're thinking that it's either going to be very early morning, West Coast hours, so somewhere between 7 a.m. and 8:30 a.m., or very late at night for West Coast hours, which would be 7 p.m. to something like 10 p.m. And then this would replace one of the weekly meetings, so we would not have 2 weekly meetings. It would be replacing one, but we can talk about the other details as well on the poll. So that should be coming out within the next week as well. Does anybody have any questions or concerns with us being accommodating to other time zones for at least one meeting a month? Cool.
Paris, my understanding was that we would have 2 9:30 meetings a month and then maybe 2 alternate time meetings. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. I figured the poll would at least help us with figuring out like what the general time preferences are. And then we can talk about cadence and stuff like that.
Okay. And so that's going out on the mailing list?
Yes. Yep. Check that out on the ML. All right. Any other comments or objections? Cool. All right. And then I did set an issue, and I have not lazy linked it into the agenda today. This is a huge task that I think we're going to undergo, which is the analysis of our communication and collaboration platforms. Most of you know that we've actually started to already do some low-hanging fruit. And for instance, sunsetting the K users in favor of discuss issue. And some other areas where we know we can consolidate and things like that, just based off the sprawl that we have currently. I did find out that the Rust community is going through something similar right now, and source communities that realize the sprawl is so great. They're breaking GitHub issues, etc., with comments. So the good news is that we have some other communities that we can talk to and guide us through this process. But what I need the most help on is the discovery aspects. In the issue, which I'll link in a second, has a document that is a spreadsheet of like what it is, why it is, who owns it, etc. This also is going to include like who owns the calendar invites, so that we can get a sense of like how we can centralize the calendar service. The calendar service is going to ultimately feed into the contributor site and the community site. So a lot of this is P0 stuff that we're talking about that we need to figure out first. I am going to slap a help wanted issue on this and a good first time issue on this, as I will walk new contributors through how to get this information. So if there's anybody on the line that would like to help with this project, please let me know. It's very, like I don't want to say it's very simple, but like for instance, to get a link to the blog, you can just Google it, etc. So it's not like we have to know code or anything like that for this. So that is it, I think, for the communication and collaboration platform, at least what I wanted to say right now. Does anybody have any comments that they want to add on this? Quiet group today. Oh, and I think it just snorted. Anyway, all right, next topic is mentoring. I need process help direly for the 101 hour, as well as group mentoring. We are attempting to automate these things as well, but we realize that there's a lot of process changes that need to happen. I'm extremely overcommitted right now, so this is my 80th call for help in regards to mentoring. If no one wants to, that's fine. It's just getting reprioritized. It's something like P2. So, yep, that's pretty much my last call for help.
Could you post links to things that are in progress but stuck or whatever?
Yep.
Because yeah, because I can probably help with something specific, but I need to have some idea of what that something specific is.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'll give you a very specific example. For the 101 hour, a lot of the interest there has been with code-based tours as well as pair programming. And we need to set a standard for how people are pair programming, or at least give them limited options so that mentors aren't fiddling around with how they're actually going to pair program with someone. So we should give recommendations as to programs that they can use and things like that, because the whole idea with this is to save people time and energy and reduce the burden that they feel. So that's a process improvement that needs to change, and ultimately documentation that needs to be written and research that needs to be done on pair programming tools. And that's from a retro that I did with people that have done pair programming for us in this capacity with people that they don't know. So that's just one of probably 20 process improvements that needs to happen. So I'd like to actually issue every single one of these things out. It's just I just haven't had the time to do that either. So I will happily DM you, Josh. Questions, concerns, comments about mentoring? All right. I put community liaisons on the agenda. I know that some of the other SIGs do this. I saw from the steering committee distro that they are also putting in something in place, and we'll probably hear from Aaron about this tomorrow during the community meeting. But my thoughts here are still with the how can we get contributor experience related news to SIGs that need this, especially process changes, stuff that Christoph and many other people work on. And we've talked about this idea a few times with many of us going to SIG meetings or other SIG meetings already, or being involved in multiple SIGs. So we could get something like official on paper that says like, oh, you are the community liaison for SIG testing, you are the community liaison for this group. And that means we know we have some kind of communication funnel into those groups, and that we feel like those groups are getting the information that they need from us, so that we don't always have to put them to our mailing list or our issue log or something like that. This isn't necessarily like required or anything like that. It's just, I feel like for me, it makes me sleep better at night knowing that our community, our micro community here has a voice in the other 40 micro communities that we have in Kubernetes. So questions, concerns, comments about that? I was going to throw up a dreaded spreadsheet like next. I know Aaron just came off mute. He heard me say the word spreadsheet and was like, oh God, no.
Yeah. I'm not thrilled with the idea of liaisons. So the reason steering committee has it is if you have questions related to steering stuff, you have people you can directly ask, because people seem to be afraid to ask a mailing list. Similarly, there are things where we need to go chase down each and every SIG and make sure they do something to comply. And so this is a way of dividing and conquering that work. But in terms of like broadcasting messages to people, this seems like a very non-scalable way of doing things. It kind of bums me out. I know Contribex tried doing a roadshow approach for a while. I don't know if y'all...
We do it once a quarter, and yeah, we're due for one right now. So yeah, no, it's still the intentions because it's in our charter.
But otherwise, like the liaison thing, I think is intended primarily for us to solve the like go nag SIGs problem. Dividing.
I feel like we have the same problem though.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like.
So I'm codifying it in 6 YAML, and it's going to show up on every 6 README. If that approach works for steering, maybe you can follow along instead of a spreadsheet.
I mean, I'm saying spreadsheet now just to get the names down. I mean, if we put this in GitHub and Markdown, that's fine. I was just using the word spreadsheet to get my head together.
That's where we started to.
Yeah. George?
I feel like we've had some for some definition of reasonable success, just being totally annoying during the community meeting and mentioning it week after week after week when we want something done.
You'll find there are a large number of members of SIGs who don't attend the community meeting. And just
which is why we've been doing it over time, spamming dev and spamming leads. Like seems to be generally effective. Or am I incorrect in assuming that?
I was going to ask when y'all are going to start showing up at random SIGs meetings and throwing up like Neon Cat or stuff to see who's actually followed the moderation guidelines.
Oh, that's coming.
Yeah.
Because
when's the red team happening?
Yeah. I get the feeling that they're getting the emails and they know. They just, like, for example, they saw that. They're like, man, I don't have time to sit there and delete 15 of these service accounts. Whatever. I've got better things to do. Right? Like, I suspect, and this is not based on any data, right? But, like, we do mention things, I think, often enough on dev leads and the community meeting that I suspect that people are just too busy and they're making that judgment in their head that they're like, I don't have time to deal with this right now. I don't know. That's just my gut, though.
Yeah, I feel like the only way we ever get a message across here is when we show up to a SIG meeting.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it. So that's why I feel like this is at this period in time until we do a complete dive into the communication platform stuff. I feel like this is a Band-Aid, and I think that's how steering committee is looking at it as well. But it's better than what we have currently, which is people not reading emails and then us having to go in as bad actors and kill their Zoom meeting, for instance, for like the Zoom moderation stuff. So that's why I keep going back to this idea. And like I said, every single one of us, I mean, I'm looking at all your faces right now. Every single one of us goes to at least one other SIG meeting a week. So what is it? So like, that's kind of what I want to know. Like, what meeting is it so that I know, like, oh, I know Josh goes to Node every week. So like, if we need something from Node, then I can be like, Josh, help me out here. Something along those lines. Tim said, could add a label type and extend the GitHub under to appropriate messages to SIGs. Whatever. Like, I don't even care anymore.
Just as a side note, the group of us that are working on the non-code project, one of the things that we're doing is putting together a list of the folks that could act as representatives to the various SIGs, and we're making that list. So
yeah, so I feel like a lot of SIGs have this issue, especially the SIGs that and the sub-projects that have like cross SIG work and things like that. So anyway,
in all seriousness, though, I think my snarky comment about labels in GitHub Munger is to kind of remind that at least in another place on SIG release, or the release team specifically, we've chosen explicitly to try to just go to reaching out one-on-one, but as necessary. And there maybe it scales better because it's always targeted issues. It's not a broadcast. We need to tell everybody about something.
So yeah, I guess just keep this in the back of our heads as we go forward with more communication stuff. Christoph, I think I saw you came off mute.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is if I remember correctly, the last time we were talking about our roadshow, it wasn't just we need to get our message and evangelize our message to SIGs, but it's also completing that feedback loop and getting feedback from other people, because that's the other thing with a lot of these SIGs. There's a lot of busy people in those SIGs that have ideas and will get annoyed by processes, procedures, bots, things that are coming out of Contribux, or ideas and suggestions they have for us, but maybe they just haven't sent an email and they haven't got around to it, or generating a GitHub issue. I know there's not one of us who's not guilty of like having an idea and being like, I'll put a GitHub issue on that, or I'll send an email on that, and then it gets lost in the ether.
Just describe my middle name, Christoph.
To George's point earlier about like, I don't know, I don't have the data, so I'm just like winging it here. Like, how do we actually I would try to be mindful of how can you get the data as you're interacting with these sort of like, I want to get a thing done. How can I collect who's actually got the thing done and who hasn't to help you, and then show that to move forward. Anyway, we're beating a dead horse. We have 3 minutes left. I'm done.
Well, the last item is literally going to be 30 seconds, which is, again, I have not lazily put the link in the agenda, but I will. Still collecting survey ideas, question ideas. I know Josh has added a few, etc. And we will circle back with this group before we send out the survey. This would be the Kubernetes Contributor Experience Survey. Obviously, questions about communication platforms and collaboration platforms are on there, but also our processes as far as workflow and stuff like that is concerned. So if anyone really wants to know something from at least, probably 150 people that will get back, now is your chance. Speak now, forever hold your peace. And that's pretty much it for that.
When are you hoping to have all the questions compiled by?
I mean, I technically think we're pretty decent right now. I just haven't heard from a large crew of people. I mean, not large crew, but I haven't heard from like a diverse set of people. I mean, it's only been like 4 of us, and this crew is 200 people deep. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody thinks that, we're asking the right things. So I'm just looking to hear from other folks. That's all. If not, then I'll take the silence as we're good to go, and we can present it in the next meeting and then send out. And we can work with CNCF to get the marketing plan together. But other than that, I just wanted to hear from folks that haven't weighed in before.
So the deadline to chime up is
let's make it
Monday?
Yeah, I'd say let's make it Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have we sent this to the list yet also? I'm just curious. I know I got an invite, but I don't know if that was to me or to the list.
I think I'm pretty sure I sent it to the list. I can look. I think I sent the very, very bare bones one like 2 months ago or so.
Yeah, probably wouldn't hurt to say like, hey, round 2, everybody, reminder.
Yeah, I'll do that today. All right.
Okay. Right on time. Thank you everyone for coming this morning. Thank you, Josh, for taking notes. And we will see y'all next week.
Adios.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Later.